All right. Well, howdy, everyone. Let me briefly introduce the semester-long project that goes with 630 this semester. And so I've opened some material in Canvas, and let me explain it now. All right. So first of all, this is a pretty substantial part of this course. It's 20% of your grade. What will I ask you to do? It is a technical writing assignment. You will write a 5-page Human Factors and Ergonomics Society Proceedings style paper. And there's a lot of guidelines online for what this needs to be. This is a convenient thing for me to assign because if people have questions about format, I just say, well, here's the information on their website, and they get thousands of questions. So they're pretty well tuned as far as, you know, what needs to be in there. So that's going to be a strict requirement that you follow that proceedings format. And I have, of course, linked to more information about what that format needs to be on the course website. Good. I've also provided examples from the class from previous offerings of 630 that I thought were exemplary. They did very well on this. And so you can kind of get a sense for what's about the scope of what students usually do for this. But in general, you can find these proceedings for this conference online quite easily. And there's, you know, many examples there. All right. And this is ultimately what it's going to look like. This is actually a screenshot of a published paper that we have in this conference from, I guess, about a decade ago now. But that's why my name is on there, because that's a real paper that we published. All right, well, good news. You get to choose what the topic will be. But now there's a process by which you'll propose some ideas, and I'll give you some feedback, and I'll help you zero in on an agreed upon topic. The topic needs to be in the realm of interest for this class for obvious reasons. Human factors and ergonomics concepts or principles or topics, current events that could be looked at, you know, with the human factors eye, for example. This could be something we will cover in lecture, something we have covered, you know, in lectures by the time you submit your thing. But it doesn't need to be. It's just anything that involves humans interfacing in a system and, you know, the interesting aspects of the cognitive or physical factors, you know, in that interfacing. Where can you go for ideas? Google key terms. You know, you could do a Google for bad designs. You could do a Google for something like, you know, worst cell phone design or worst gas pump interface or TV remote. You know, you can search around and find those things. You know, current events are very interesting and very timely to find information on them. You can go to discussion boards or blogs on topics that have to do with human factors and ergonomics. We talked about in topic 0 and topic 1 about the technical groups that you can go to and look for more, you know, where your interests align with some of these scientific methods and topics. Ergonomics in design is sort of like a magazine version of some of the technical work. So if you want to check out that publication, it's available, I believe, to the TAMU libraries. Okay, so you choose the topic, and I'll tell you about how you do that here shortly. Now, key thing, there are two general options that I want you to think about. This is something that you'll need to submit with your proposal. I want to do this option, but it's not set in stone. You can change it. And so the more difficult, generally the more effort involved option, but also one that may be a little more interesting to some of you, is this one, option 1, which is to conduct your own little experiment or to do a formal evaluation of some technology according to some of the, you know, some of the principles, some of the topics that we'll get to in coming weeks. So this one is a little trickier. I'm going to pay a little closer attention and work with you a little bit more to make sure that it's scoped appropriately, because there are rules and I have, you know, moral and ethical responsibilities to, you know, make sure that I'm upholding the, you know, the research compliance and biosafety aspects that we need to. And there is something called the Institutional Review Board. And if you want to take this class exercise to the point where, hey, I might want to publish this. Great thing to do for grad students, right? Especially if you're interested in further study or research as a profession, is to try to get your work published and get a chance to present it at an upcoming conference here. So if you want to publish it, what we need to do, if you're doing an actual experiment with real human subjects, is you'll need to go through this process to get approved by the institutional review board in order to collect those data. This is a huge side topic. I would say if you're interested in that, catch me in office hours, shoot me an email, and we'll find a time to talk about it. But basically, I want to make sure that the amount of effort that goes into applying for this and why you would need to go through this method. Then there are also ways where, hey, if I'm just going to collect data, for something from my class, and now I can just use my roommates or my significant other or family members and ask them to be my guinea pigs, so to speak, so I can collect data for class. That's going to be an okay thing to do here. But again, I want you to tell me what you're doing so that I can tell you, even though your parents are willing to help you with this, if you're going to give them, that much electric shock, I can't in good conscience say that's a good idea, or whatever you're going to do to them, I'll have to make sure that in the name of my class, you're not doing anything risky, beyond your normal everyday risk encounters. All right. So again, option one, mini experiment or formal evaluation. So this could be like a usability evaluation, for example. There we go. Okay. Now the format to follow here, there's a pretty standard an experiment sort of format that HFES proceedings commonly follow. It's introduction, methods, results, and conclusions. You can, follow that method more or less. Even if you do this option, which is your own experiment, you're still going to need to go to the scientific literature, and I want to see references to at least 3 reputable scholarly works. I'm going to tell you what I mean by that here shortly, but you need 3 serious scientific references, to back up what you're doing here. One of the things that gets graded in this report is how well you've tied in concepts from the course. I don't want you to force something. So if you're on a topic that has nothing to do with anything we talked about, that'd be hard, I guess. But we'll look for ways to, see, hey, you actually learned something in this course that you applied to this unique, investigation. Option 1, the experiment option. Option 2 is a literature review. Now, this is a formal literature review. I want you to take it quite seriously. And it's not just I'm going to read 10 papers and then, kind of summarize each of those 10 papers. So this is, I think, the potentially less required in terms of the amount of effort, of the 2 options. But you're not exploring quite as much. So I do want to encourage that option 1 for anybody who's ambitious enough to do it. But option 2, which is completely acceptable and is going to be graded on the same scale, would be this literature review. Now you can choose a technology, you can choose, we talked about humans in a system. So any sort of system element that you want to focus on could be the topic, that you choose to do your review on this here. Now, for a 5-page proceedings paper, you're not going to be able to go very deep into the literature, but you need to go at least this deep and include at least 10 reputable scholarly works. So at least 3 if you're doing the experiment, at least 10 if you're doing the lit review. And you can add on top of that. But if you start citing, this website or that website, you should make sure you have at least 10 scholarly works underneath it. All right. And again, tying in concepts from the course when it's appropriate. All right. So those are the 2 options. If you've got questions about it, we will have an iteration of you submitting your ideas, me giving you feedback and helping you zero in on these topics. And again, very commonly happens, people have one plan for about, a month and a half, and then something happens and they decide, can I just change my topic altogether? Also perfectly fine. Just talk to me about it and I'll help you through that process. Okay, what does this mean? Reputable scholarly work. So there's a few key words here I want to point out. If you have some science that is what they call peer reviewed, what this means is before it reached the stage of being published, earlier drafts were sent out to peers or basically credible scientists in this area. And they say, hey, what do you think this is acceptable for this journal in terms of, what the journal stands for and its, degree of rigor and everything. And so I get asked to review, journal articles, proceedings papers all the time. I ask other people to review them for me. And when they are reputable people, when they're people that have credibility, they have a degree, that says they're human factors or they're known in the field for, they've distinguished themselves professionally. Now this matters because now I can say, well, that journal only publishes things that the scientific community, the community of peers has determined is good enough to publish here. And it can be pretty hard to get through that barrier sometimes. Well, actually always, it's always very hard. The question is it very hard or is it nearly impossible, right? But in general, if you see a major scientific publication and peer reviewed is the key on that, now I'm saying that's reputable, that's scholarly work. There's a person that I could point to in the field who knows who did the review, and there are other people in the field. Interesting note, published books are not always peer reviewed. So textbooks are a little dubious here, okay? But scientific journal articles, scientific, proceedings papers, if they're peer reviewed proceedings, which Human Factors and Ergonomic Society is, then those will all work for this. Government technical reports are extensively reviewed by peers, as I find out because I'm writing these reports and I'm dealing with the reviews. Major media outlets, if somebody's got an author that you can, if you can find out the author of a major, news media article, then that works as well. If you are curious, hey, is this probably a credible piece of work? Or, I don't know the names of all these journals. What is the Tasmanian Society of Safety, upside downies or something? Sorry, Tasmanian. If there's some crazy journal, and you're like, well, is this any good? Well, one good way to find out is to look at the citation count. So I use Google Scholar, scholar.google.com as my primary search for anything scholarly. It's not the only search out there. It's the one that I like to use, and I will recommend you do as well if you don't have already another preference. But one of the nice things here is if you search in this search, so it's not regular Google, it's scholar.google.com. And you can do keywords right here, title, date, authors, etc. And if you are logged in through Texas A&M, if you're, either on campus or you have a VPN, it will automatically link you through all of the subscriptions that Texas A&M Libraries has. So you'll be able to click right over here and just go right to those PDFs of those journal articles, or full text at TAMU will help you get there. Is this a reasonable scientific, source? I would say, well, look at the citation count here. I don't want to claim that this is a high citation number, but it's not cited by one or not cited at all. So to some extent, this will give you an indication. Well, other people are citing this work. It's got some credibility. Okay. Cool thing is you can also click on this. This is a link, and it'll tell you who does cite that work. So you can kind of trace, through a topic. It kind of helps you to go back and forth there sometimes. Okay, if you're questioned about, well, hey, how do I cite this? What does that mean? This is something I want you to pay attention to. The way that you cite something matters. There's a style. Some of you may be familiar with some other styles like the MLA style. This is like when I go here, let's go ahead and do this. If I go to, scholar.google.com, and what should we search for? Oh no, okay, so I just want to show this much. Now I am logged into my Tamu VPN, so this will take me right to, where I have it published, or I'll get right to the PDF, if it's quick linked there. So that's great. And then I wanted to show also in Scholar the style of citing. Now, the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society always uses APA style. This is the American Psychological Association style. And Purdue, for whatever reason, runs a really excellent online resource, which kind of is a tutorial on how to cite in these different formats. But I did want to show this example here, where we can go cite. And look at that. If you go to the APA line right there, that is the citation in APA format, at least as close as Google, Google AI can do. MLA is another style that you may have used, and there's other ones as well. I always use APA if I can help it, because that's what Human Factors uses. All right. And going on. Deadlines. Okay, so coming up next, you do have a proposal. Now, this is designed to be not very challenging to write. The challenge is going to be the thinking and coming up with good ideas. So you've got 2 weeks for this. I just want to see these on half a page, more or less. If you go over a half a page, this isn't something where I'm going to look closely at length. I just want something clearly communicated that I can respond to that says, yeah, that's a good idea, or I recommend this idea and not that one, or hey, this one will work if we just tweak it a little bit like this. I do want 2 ideas. It's not complete unless you give me 2. So if you talk to me between now and Monday and you say, hey, would this be a good idea? And I say, yeah, that's a great idea. You still got to submit a proposal, and you still got to give me a second idea too. So, if you want to give me a garbage second idea or whatever, but just for completeness, everyone's got to give me 2. Another reason is because there may be multiple people with the same or very similar topics. And in that case, I may kind of encourage one to go, a different way. Or just having 2 is also it's also a good way for me to be able to say, well, that'd be cool if you can get it to work, but I'm not convinced you'll be able to get it to work. Therefore, it's nice to have that backup option. All right, so each of these, and I'll just, topic idea 1, topic idea 2, in one line, tell me what you want to do. Do tell me, you want to do this as a mini experiment or as the lit review? Tell me why this is interesting to you. Now, what do I mean? Well, this is the kind of thing where people say, oh, I work at this plant, or I work in this industry, or I did work in this industry, and this was meaningful to me. And I observed this. And that's why I want to evaluate it according to, the principles of display design or something. That's great. So just tell me your motivation. I want to help you find something that's, innately interesting to you, but then still meets, the goals of this for this course. How do you plan to proceed, especially if you're saying, oh, I want to do a mini experiment? I want to see a little bit about, I'm going to make this thing, or I'm going to set it up so I can collect data, with my family when I go home on spring break, or whatever that might be. Give me a little bit here so I can see that you've thought through and you could legitimately do this. I also like this because, if somebody says, oh, I want to evaluate, the interface that a bus driver, a campus bus driver, has, then I would say, how are you going to do that? And you need to be able to tell me something like, I'm a bus transit supervisor, or here's my supervisor, I'm a driver, and here's my supervisor telling me, they can do it. And I mentioned that because I've had a number of bus drivers who've taken my classes and then done these interfaces before. So anyway, I'm very interested in something that is unique to you, to your world, to your interests. So give that a thought. Come and talk to me in office hours, if you want to before then. But this is due by 11:59 on Valentine's Day. So get it in, please. I will then give feedback that following week, so you'll know yay or nay, or how to change it, how to tweak it, to go forward there. You will then, 3 months later, 3.5, two and a half. You will then have the 5-page report will be due. And this follows strictly that HFES proceedings format. This is the last week of classes. It's due on the Monday, and you still have a week with me. And so your assignment during that week will be to review your classmate's submission. So we're actually going to do, you submit something, but then you review 3 of your classmates' papers that week and do it just like we do for, reviewing for the conference. So you'll get a chance to experience that process too. But yep, next big thing coming up, 2/14/22, that proposal is due. Some resources to check out on Canvas. First of all, I have posted the latest guidelines document for how to format your papers and everything for submission to Human Factors and Ergonomics Society. I have 9 or 10 really exemplary articles that I've posted, and I've used the same ones for several years now. So I think it's a pretty consistent set of it's a pretty nice diverse set of topics too. So check these out and see see if anything rings a bell, or if you say, oh, I could write about that much on that topic or on a different topic. If you've never written a literature review before, it's more than just I'm going to read a bunch of stuff and then combine it together. Like, I read this and this is what it says, and then I read this and this is what it says. If I get a submission that is like that, it's not going to score very well. We need you to write the narrative and tie in the evidence in a meaningful way. So do check out that set of slides if you've never done this before, if you'd like a little refresher. These are some do's and don'ts, and basically, if you do the don'ts, it's not going to go well for grading. So there you go. Finally, if you're, hey, I'm looking for ideas now, how do I find these papers? I already showed you a couple of tricks in Google Scholar. This set of slides here goes into detail for the process that I go through when I'm like, I need this paper, how do I get it? And there's a step-by-step method that I typically do. So I hope those are useful for you. Check them out. They're all on Canvas. And then finally, external resources to find ideas. And then once you've got your ideas, then of course to find your literature that you need. All right, good luck. Thanks, everyone.